This is the district court for Lincoln County, Utopia, calling the case of Shay Jackson versus State versus Shay Jackson, 22 CR 805 to order. We are on this morning for a jury trial in this matter. This is District Judge Rory Hudson presiding. This is a grave matter that we are on for today. After voir dire, we have impaneled a jury so that we may begin this first-degree murder trial. Before we begin, I'd like to advise the jury of some matters which we will be undertaking today. If everyone in the jury would please raise the right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you? Yes or no? Yes. Thank you. Now that you have been sworn, and before the presentation of evidence, I have some preliminary instructions for that will guide you as jurors in this case. You and only you will be the judge of the facts of this case. You will have to decide what happened. You should not take anything I say or do during a trial as indicative of what I think of the evidence or what your verdict should be. My role is to be the judge of the law during a trial. I will make legal decisions during a trial, and I will explain to you legal principles that you must abide by and which will guide you. However, at the conclusion of the trial, if you convict the defendant, you will be making legal decisions regarding sentencing. Neither sympathy nor prejudice should influence your verdict. You are to apply the law as stated in these instructions and to the facts as you find them, and in this way you will decide this case. The evidence from which you are to find the facts consists of the testimony of the witnesses, documents and other items received as exhibits, and any facts that are stipulated to, that are formally submitted to the jury for consideration by the parties. The following are not evidence: statements, arguments, and questions of the lawyers for the parties in this case, objections by the lawyers, any testimony I tell you to disregard, and anything you may see or hear about this case outside of the courtroom. You must make your decision based only on the evidence presented in court. Do not let rumors, suspicions, or anything seen or heard outside of the courtroom influence your decision in any way. You should use your common sense in weighing the evidence. Consider it in light of your everyday experiences with people and events, and give whatever weight you believe it deserves. Certain rules control what can be received into evidence. When a lawyer asks a question or offers an exhibit into evidence, and a lawyer on the other side thinks that it is not permitted under the rules of evidence, that lawyer may object. An objection simply means that the lawyer is requesting that I make a decision on a particular rule of evidence. Objections to questions are not in and of themselves evidence, and you should not draw any inference one way or the other from the existence or lack of existence of an objection. Furthermore, you should not be influenced by my granting an objection or not granting an objection. If the objection is sustained, ignore the question. If it is overruled, treat the answer like any other. Evidence may be direct or circumstantial. Direct evidence is direct proof of a fact, such as testimony by a witness about what that witness personally saw, heard, or did. Circumstantial evidence is proof of one or more facts from which you could find another fact. You should consider both kinds of evidence. The law makes no distinction between the weight to be given to either direct or circumstantial evidence. You may decide the case solely based upon circumstantial evidence if you so choose. In deciding the facts, you must determine what testimony you believe and what testimony you do not believe. You are the sole judges of the credibility or believability of the witnesses. You may believe all, some, or none of a witness's testimony. In deciding which testimony to believe, you should use the same tests of truthfulness as you would in your everyday lives, including considering the following factors: the ability of the witness to see, hear, or know the things the witness testifies to, the quality of the witness's understanding and memory, the witness's manner and behavior while testifying, the witness's interest in the outcome of the case or any motive, bias, or prejudice the witness might have, whether the witness is contradicted by anything the witness said or wrote before trial or by other evidence, and how reasonable the witness's testimony is when considered in the light of other evidence that you believe to be true or that you have considered to be true. Inconsistencies or discrepancies within a witness's testimony or between the testimonies of different witnesses may or may not cause you to disbelieve a witness's testimony. Two or more persons witnessing an event may simply see or hear it differently. Mistaken recollection, like a person's failure to recall, is a common human experience. In weighing the effect of an inconsistency, you should also consider whether it was about a matter of importance or whether it was an insignificant detail. You should also consider whether the inconsistency was innocent or intentional. The weight of the evidence to prove a fact does not necessarily depend upon the number of witnesses who testified or the quantity of evidence that was presented. More important is how believable the witnesses were and how much weight you think their testimony deserves. You will now hear the opening statements of the parties and the presentation of evidence. At the conclusion of the evidence, I will instruct you on the law of this case and how to apply it to the facts that you have been presented. Right. Are the first chairs in position for the state and the defense?
Does it matter what order we call up our witnesses in?
That is entirely up to you. So then I have this slightly mislabeled for anyone who's watching us in the wider world. So then to my left is to my left are the state. So then, ma'am, please state your name for the record.
Dayanara Orozco.
Daniela?
Dayanara.
And ma'am, please speak into the microphone when you just, so that everyone, as we are live streaming this, so that everyone might be able to hear it. Right, so Dayanara, are you the first chair for the state?
Yes.
All right. And are you ready to proceed to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes.
All right, if you wish to make an opening statement, then the floor is yours to do so.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Dayanara Orozco, and we represent the state of Utopia in this case. On December 27th, the defendant committed the crime of murder. On December 27th, a confrontation turned physical, which left Shay Jackson with a gash on the back of his head and a bruised face. Shay had to be treated in the hospital for his injuries. The next morning, on December 29th, Shay woke up to the police at his door asking about Jeremy, the other person in the confrontation. It turns out Jeremy was found unconscious the night before in the Paradise Casino's alleyway. Jeremy died on the way to the hospital as a result of cardiac arrest, blunt force trauma, and internal bleeding. Shay has been charged with murder in the first degree. During this hearing, you will hear from the defendant and witnesses who will tell you in their own words what happened and how the defendant took a valuable life because of their careless actions. You will also hear from the police officers' testimony alongside the witnesses to tell you their story of the incident. With this, we will be able to prove to you that the defendant is guilty of this selfless crime. Thank you.
Right, and sir, at the defense table, if you please state your name for the record.
Bryson Lubers.
All right, Mr. Lubers, are you the first chair for the defense in this matter? All right, then, sir, I will remind you and everyone else to speak into a microphone, and otherwise, then the floor is yours for making an opening statement.
Good morning, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I sit here in defense of Mr. Shay Jackson as we are gathered to discuss the wrongful accusation placed upon.
Or speak up in general, either or.
Excuse me. Good morning, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I sit here in defense of Mr. Shay Jackson as we are gathered to discuss the wrongful accusation placed upon his shoulders of murder in the first degree. I would like to preface this by saying that the death of Jeremy Parker was an unfortunate and unforeseen turn of events. His death was unpreventable, and may his soul forever rest in peace. However, I am here to argue on behalf of Mr. Jackson that the responsibility should not be placed on his shoulders, and that he is to walk out of this room a free man. Shay Jackson is an honorable man, a hardworking individual who has been put in a bit of a financial hole recently due to a heavy veterinarian bill he has had to pay for his dog, Ariel. So with his intentions pure, he signed up for the Texas Hold'em tournament at the Paradise Hotel where he is employed, an ordeal that ended tragically. At the end of this case, we will ask in defense of Mr. Jackson that the jury will deem him not guilty. Thank you for your time.
All right. Is the state prepared to proceed with its case in chief?
Yes.
All right, then. The floor then is yours for presentation of your evidence, Ms. Orozco.
I'd like to call up Mr. Schuyler or Mrs. Schuyler to the witness stand.
Skylar DeVries? Skylar DeVries, please come down. And I believe that there's an attorney from the state specifically for this witness. Is that correct?
Yes.
That person would like to come on down. Mr. DeVries, over here. Unless Mr. DeVries, you went to law school without telling me and somehow became an attorney in this case. Right, Mr. DeVries, please have a seat. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
Yes.
All right, and if you would please just make sure the microphone is set in a place where it's easy for you to speak into it. All right, so then, sir, once that is done, you are sworn. It is a severity level 9 felony to lie while under oath, so I will remind everyone to keep that in mind going forward. Otherwise, then, the floor is the state belongs to the floor for conducting direct examination of this witness.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Skylar DeVries.
Would you consider yourself being Shay's friend?
Yes, even with what I saw in late December of 2021.
If I might intervene for one moment, Mr. DeVries, before you go any further, please state your full name for the record.
Full name, like,
Your legal name, yes.
oh, Ian Brummett.
And your character's legal name.
Oh,
No, but I do appreciate you giving you're giving your actual name, but your character's name, please.
okay. Skylar DeVries.
Thank you, Mr. DeVries, or Mr. Brummett, whichever you want to go by today. I apologize for that. The floor belongs to, and the distance you're at is fine, Mr. DeVries. You don't have to eat the microphone. But I appreciate the attempt anyway. I appreciate the consistency, well, the diligence rather, not the consistency. Sorry for interrupting. The floor is once more the state's.
What apartment, what did you live in?
Tigris Towers Apartments.
Where'd you go to college at?
Arcadia University.
How did you and your defendant know each other?
We were neighbors.
Who else lived in the apartment?
A couple in their 80s.
Did the defendant get along with the elderlies?
Jay often helped them.
When did the defendant get into the apartment?
June of 2021.
Did the defendant live with anyone?
Jay lived alone.
Do you recall that defendant had any hobbies?
Didn't have many hobbies. The one hobby I know, Shay was into Krav Maga, Israel street fighting. They had a couple trophies too.
DeVries, Krav Maga.
Oh, Krav Maga.
Sorry, good. Please continue.
And what was Kerry Magat?
Israel street fighting.
Would you say defendant was good at Kerry Magat?
Shay had a couple of trophies.
Do you recall the defendant ever had told you that he was in any trouble?
Juvenile detention for minor crimes, shoplifting or marijuana possessions, I think. I was surprised to hear that.
What happened November of 2021?
Ariel got really sick.
Who is Ariel?
Jay's dog, or yeah.
Could you say the defendant was stressed by all his bills?
Shay would talk about how much money trouble Shay was in.
How do you think the defendant was gonna pay his bills?
Texas Hold'em tournament right after Christmas.
Why did you give the defendant money to enter the tournament?
Shay looked so stressed.
And what happened December 28th?
I saw Shay struggling to unlock Shay's apartment door. Shay looked like a mess. It looked like Shay had been punched in the face, and I saw staples in the back of Shay's head. Shay said, I was in the ER all day. I played in the tournament last night, and I had the winning hand with this when this guy cheated and beat me.
How did you react?
I looked shocked. They said I got $700 for second place, so I can pay you back. I told Shay I didn't care about the money.
Why did the defendant have to feel that he had to find who the person was?
The casino is taking the guy's side. They're not going to help me. I've got to do something. This just isn't right.
Did you ever see this defendant with any kind of behavior?
I had never seen Shay upset like this before. The Shay I knew was always calm and optimistic.
Why did the defendant get angry with you?
I kept asking questions. Shay got really angry saying, I don't know how to deal with any of it, and you need to stop asking.
What did you do the rest of the evening?
I ordered a pizza, binged watch Love is Blind on Netflix.
What'd you do around 1:30 a.m.?
I heard someone in the hallway walking around grumbling in an angry tone. The voice sounded like Shay, banging on into the aerial.
Why didn't you go out and look?
I assumed Shay was just going out to walk aerial.
And what'd you hear at 3:15 a.m.?
I heard footsteps in the hall.
And during this time, did you see anything?
I looked out, the security people, but the hall was dark and I couldn't see anyone. I thought I saw a light under Shay's door, but I'm not positive.
Mr. Shay, you said you woke up to noises around 6:30. What woke you up?
I heard the cops pounding on Shay's door.
Did the cops interview this morning?
Yes, cops interviewed me. I told them what Shay had said in the hallway and what I heard in the middle of the night. I hope Shay didn't do it, but the cops seemed sure they got the right person. And they just didn't want to hear otherwise. It's true that Shay's behavior on December 28th was scary, but it was typical at all. So I think Shay's concussion was affecting Shay's thinking.
Thank you, Mr. Shay, for your further questions. Any further questions?
No.
Council, this is Skylar. Correct, not Shay.
Yeah, Shay, sorry.
That would be the point of the court's confusion, ma'am. Is this Skylar DeVries or is this Shay Jackson? So you have been erroneously calling him for the past 5 minutes, Shay. So you were calling him by the wrong name for the past 5 minutes. All right. All right, then. So that concludes your the state's direct.
Yes.
All right, the floor is open for cross.
Please state your name for the record.
Skylar DeVries.
Skylar, could you describe your relationship with Mr. Jackson?
Give me a second.
Right, surely you can
Yeah.
do it without referencing your notes.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, he was my friend.
Would you consider you guys were close?
Yes,
You've been around Shay a lot at parties and concerts, correct?
yes.
When things got aggressive, what did Shay do?
Don't know.
Jurors will disregard his stating he doesn't know how his friend performs under stressful circumstances. Because I would hope that he has a better answer than that.
Yes, he just would act up and
You stated earlier one of his hobbies was Krav Maga, and you said it was Israel street fighting. Do you know what else that entails?
no, I have no idea what. All I know is it's street fighting, Israel street fighting.
On December 28th, you had an interaction with Mr. Jackson. What was your reaction after having that time seeing him?
I was nervous and scared.
Were you surprised by the way he was acting?
Yes,
Before December 28th, did you ever see Shay act like that before?
no,
Later that night, describe what you heard and saw in the hallway.
I didn't see much, but I just seen him walking around and grumbling in an anger tone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Is there any redirect from the state?
No.
All right, seeing as there is no redirect, then the witness may step down. However, sir, you do remain sworn. And it is possible you may be called to present rebuttal testimony in the future. So if you would like to go have a seat in the gallery. State would call its next witness.
I'd like to call up Mrs. Kelly O'Sullivan to the stand, please.
Mrs. O'Sullivan? Well, the court normally does not take into account pronouns. I think that is appropriate at this time. Mr. O'Sullivan, if you please come have a seat. If the attorneys for Mr. O'Sullivan would please join the first chairs. Mr. O'Sullivan, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
Yes.
All right, and the court would ask that you not consult your life story if it can be helped.
Sounds good.
Not like your life story is written in a book, right?
Nope.
All right. Witness has been sworn and the state floor belongs to the state.
My name is Kelly O'Sullivan.
What is it that you do in the casino?
I am a head bartender at Ambrosia Bar.
How old were you when you started working?
Ever since I turned 16, I started working as a cashier in the hotel snack bar.
Where did you go to college?
To college, I went to Arcata University.
Where did you work?
My freshman year, I started as a night desk manager in the Golden Gates Resort Hotel. As soon as I turned 21, I applied to be bartender at Ambrosia Bar in the Paradise Casino. The hours are better, and I made more money, and it was a lot more fun.
Where were you when you turned 21?
Well, I answered that question. I was 21. I applied to be a bartender. Yeah.
And ma'am, please speak in the microphone. Or speak up, one or the other. Thank you.
How often is the bar open?
The bar is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
As a bartender, what keeps the people at the gaming table?
Well, it's usually our prices are low, and we even offer free drinks sometimes, like on special events, as the Texas Hold'em tournaments, and it's to keep the people at the gaming tables longer.
What kind of customers does the casino bring in?
The casino brings many regular customers, which kind of worries me because, to be honest, it's not, if money's an issue, you shouldn't be spending it on gambling and stuff like that. It should be the necessities first.
Has anyone ever won big?
It often happens at the blackjack tables. I remember one time a school teacher a few years ago, she seemed to be naive, but proved to be a really great gambler, blackjack player. She walked away with a cool $500,000 because she had photographic memory. And the firm, the pit boss politely asked and firmly asked her to leave the premises.
Jeremy Parker, does that sound familiar?
Jeremy Parker, Mr. Parker, he was one of those regulars that he maybe should have been spending more of his money on other things than gambling.
Why would Mr. Parker always this blazer you are telling us about?
The witness will disregard that. There's been no mention of any blazer of any sort. There's no foundation for that testimony. When I ask that question, you need to do something, because that's the first time anybody's heard of that.
On December 27, what event happening in the?
Well, I worked the 5 nights in a row, like 5 nights in a row on the week of Christmas, including the night on the December 27th. And on that night, we had the Texas Hold'em poker tournament. It was a casino hosting a single table tournament for 48 hours straight. And it started on 6 a.m. on December 27th, and it ended at 6 p.m. or a.m., sorry, on December 29th. Anyone was allowed to join, even including employees when they're off time, when they're off work, of course. And to join, players have to pay a 30 entrance fee to the casino and a buy-in of $300.
Recognize anybody at the poker table?
I think I recognized Mr. Parker play in the poker table.
How well did you know Shay Jackson?
Shay Jackson, he worked in the food court where I ate my meals. And I've seen Jackson 45 days, well, 45 times a week for a year or more. Shay started as a janitor, and he worked his way up to being a manager, an evening manager at a taco joint a few months earlier. He must have worked right before joining the poker game, which I have noticed him too. And he was wearing his purple Tito's taco shirt, uniform shirt.
Was Mr. Jackson or Mr. Parker was assuming alcohol or?
Mr. Parker was consuming alcohol, and he seemed more boisterous as the nights went on. We were giving out free hoppy holidays, craft beer from the local brewery, and Mr. Parker was taking full advantage, downing a drink every hour or two. And he was drinking so much that I was going to have to cut him off pretty soon.
Prior to the illness, how would you describe Shay attack?
Excuse me?
Ma'am, not to be a broken record, but you need to speak into the microphone. So, ma'am, a simple suggestion, as you have prepared questions, you might move your prepared questions to your left so that when you're leaning over, looking down at them, you're pointing yourself at the microphone. So move your notebook to the left of the microphone. Or your question's in line with it, exactly like that, yes. So, ma'am, the witness was unable to hear your last question, so if you would please repeat it for him.
Could you please tell me what happened to the?
Of course, you are both attorneys, so.
Could you please tell the court what happened the rest of that early morning?
So, on the night of the play-in tournament, Mr. Parker was having a great time. He was winning most of the rounds, and the winners, they come in, they place first, second, and third, and when you win the first round, the winner gets $4,000, and then second place gets 700, and then third place gets 500. Sorry. And Mr. Parker was having a great time. He was getting first and seconds for each round, and Shay Jackson was he was doing fairly well to himself. And sorry. I was in my 15-minute break, and I was considering going to Mr. Parker to congratulate him on his winning spree. And then I noticed that a fight broke out. I had turned away to give a customer a drink, and I heard someone shout, "You fool, you must have cheated. That money should have been mine." I looked up to see Shay Jackson yelling at Mr. Parker. And I've been taken aback because I believe that Shay Jackson had been a very calm and professional looking fellow. And we've chatted only a couple times, but I learned that Shay was a really outgoing person. He liked to work out, and he was really big into Krav Maga. And he was very fit and in good physical shape. So on the night, he had a little outburst, and they started pushing at each other, shoving, and Mr. Parker pushed Shay in the chest, and Shay retaliated by being more aggressive, and they started a fight brew out. And I had to go call security, and Shay walked away through the exit first, and we attended to Mr. Parker's wounds when I called security.
You have a clear view on this person?
Excuse me?
Did you have a clear view on this person?
Did have a clear view on the person. It was Shay Jackson and Mr. Parker.
What happened around 3 a.m.?
Around 3 a.m. of which day, ma'am? The following day?
Sir,
Yeah.
prosecute, it's state's job to ask you questions. But that is so the witness is unsure of what date you're referring to, ma'am. So if you would please address which night with some specificity.
The same night?
Same night. Okay. The same night I heard sirens outside, and so I ran over to the window because I was doing my job, yeah. And I see that EMTs were taking somebody outside in the alleyway, and I saw that I recognized the face of Mr. Parker. And I was shocked to realize it was him, because every time he bet, or every time he was he gambled, he wore a plaid brown blazer. And I recognized that blazer anywhere. And the person getting into the ambulance had a brown blazer on.
Where were you questioning that time from the?
Speak up into the microphone. And if you're having trouble speaking to the microphone, then you need to be loud and announce yourself. This is your witness after all.
Where were you questioning at that time from the casino pool?
When I was being questioned, I was questioned by an officer, I think. I think it was Mr. Wilson. And it was about seeing the person who looked like Shay. I answered him by saying how a shady person that followed Shay, or that followed Mr. Parker into the alleyway 30 minutes before. And I was telling the officer that there's a suspicious guy that went 30 minutes after Mr. Parker left to the alleyway.
What was unusual about the detective?
What was unusual was that the fight happened the night before, well, the same night, and what I'd seen the fight, well, the night, the suspicious person, it looked like Shay. He had well, I started telling the detective that there are two other suspicious guys that followed with the other suspicious guy. And they went to the same exit where Mr. Parker left. And he wasn't, the officer wasn't nearly as interested when he was questioning me about Shay. And he didn't seem to ask about the two other suspicious men that followed. And after I was done, the detective wanted to speak with the casino manager to get Shay's address to answer further questions.
Did you talk to anyone else about what happened?
No, the police told me not to talk to anybody else, including the media.
No more reporters' questions.
No more questions? All right. The floor is open to defense for cross-examination of this witness.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Kelly O'Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, would you say you knew Mr. Parker well?
I would say I knew him well enough for him to be a regular at the casino.
When you first mentioned Mr. Parker, you said that Mr. Parker was someone who should be spending his money elsewhere, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You also described him as a very superstitious man that loved his lucky jacket, yes?
He did.
When you described Shane and when you saw him that night, you say he seemed calm, unlike Mr. Parker.
Yes, ma'am.
You say that Mr. Parker became more boisterous and that he abused his free Happy Holidays beer, drowning a drink every 2 to 3 hours.
Yes, he did.
And that if he kept on drinking at the rate he was drinking, you were going to have to cut him off.
That is true.
When you heard Shay scream at Mr. Parker, you say that you were shocked at hearing Shay scream because you knew him as a very calm and professional man. When you talked to him, he was very open and told you he was really into.
There a question in there, defense?
Yes.
Then ask it.
Was Shay a very open man to you?
He was pretty open, yes.
And then that night, when Shay was infuriated at Mr. Parker, he did not throw the first punch, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
Mr. Parker, you say that you saw Mr. Parker glare at Shay and proceeded to jump out of his chair and push Shay, correct?
Yes.
And when you saw Shay about to leave the casino, it was Mr. Parker who threw the first punch at Shay.
Yes.
Defense, you have a fair amount of leeway with leading questions on cross, but they shouldn't all be leading.
At the night after the fight, you say that you saw 2 suspicious men.
I saw 2 suspicious men leaving after Mr. Parker did. The same exit too, yes.
What made them suspicious?
What made them suspicious was that they kind of had their head down and they're walking pretty fast. It seemed as if they weren't trying to get any attention on him.
Can you recall which way they left the casino?
They left the same exit that Mr. Parker did before, 30 minutes before.
When you asked Detective Lee, when you told Detective Lee about the two suspicious men that you saw, how did he respond?
Kind of disregarded the two suspicious men and focused more on Shay's being and what he did that night.
That'll be all.
Right? Any redirect?
No.
All right, with no redirect, then the witness may step down. Remember, you have been sworn and remain sworn, and you may be recalled to present rebuttal testimony further down the line. So if you want to go back to the gallery, sir.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, the state may call its next witness.
I would like to call up the Mr. Officer Emery Lee to the stand, please.
All right. All right, sir, please raise your right hand.
All right.
Sir, please take your binder off of that.
Oh, there's a camera.
There's a camera there that we're for the live stream is why I was blocking that. So then, sir, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help
Yes.
you? All right, please state your legal name for the record.
Assistant Division Chief Emerald Lee.
Your parents had a
Oh, wait,
very
yeah.
particular idea of what they wanted you to do with their life with your life when they named you, didn't they?
Yes.
All right. All right, then, Mr. Lee, the floor, you've been sworn. Remember, that is a felony to lie under oath. Otherwise, the floor is open to the state to conduct its direct examination of this witness.
Please state your name for the court.
Emerald Lee.
How did you receive your credentials?
I earned my bachelor's with honors in criminal justice from Edwin University back in 2000.
Is it true that you went back to school to advance your career?
Yes, I decided to return to school in order to advance in my career.
About how many hours have you spent specializing in forensic professional education?
More than 150 hours.
Would you deem yourself as a well-qualified professional to handle this case?
Yes, because I am a member in good standings of the American Academy of Forensic Science, the International Crime Investigators Association, and the International Associations of Crime Analysts.
When using methods in the field, would you say your methods are credible?
Yes, because they are used by investigators globally.
What was Mr. Parker wearing when he was found?
Parker was wearing a brown plaid blazer with a white shirt and khaki pants.
What was noted on the front of the blazer?
4 blood spots were noted.
What do blood droplets left on the surface tell us?
Blood droplets left on the surface are called blood splatter, and the droplet shapes and patterns provide evidence about the force and path traveled by the blood before reaching the surface.
What did the pattern and number of droplets on the blazer found reveal?
There was 4. The 2 smaller drops simply dripped onto the blazer from above, most likely when Parker was lying down. The other 2 drops were larger and appeared to be the result of blunt force injuries suffered by Parker when he was attacked.
Upon testing the blood type, how many people could the blood belong to?
At least 2 different people.
What was Mr. Parker's blood type?
B negative,
And what is the percentage of people having B negative?
1.5%.
What was Jackson's blood type?
O negative,
And what is the percentage of people having O negative?
6.6%.
From where did you obtain the DNA that you analyzed?
I swabbed it from his blazer and from underneath his fingernails.
When DNA testing, what are PCRs used for?
Used to amplify the sample size of the STRs by making millions of copies of these small DNA fragments to give a larger sample size to aid in testing.
And why are you able to use this technique?
These techniques have passed peer review thousands of times, and such results have been deemed admissible in court in hundreds of thousands of cases in the United States.
What did the DNA profile reveal about the large blood drops?
The DNA profile obtained from swabs of the two larger blood drops on Parker's suit matched the known DNA profile of Parker. The DNA profile was entirely inconsistent with the DNA profile of Jackson.
What did the DNA profile reveal about the small blood drops?
The two smaller drops on Parker's suit matched the known DNA profile of Jackson. The DNA profile was entirely inconsistent with the DNA profile of Parker.
What did the DNA profile reveal about the skin cells from underneath Parker's fingernails?
The profiles matched the known DNA profiles of both Jackson and Parker.
How do experts declare a match when conducting a fingerprint analysis?
While the FBI does not require a specific number of matching characteristics to declare a match, the greater the number of points in common, the better. But we standardly just require 20 common points.
How many fingerprints were found in the bloodstains?
5 fingerprints, 3 full and 2 partial.
Can you explain what you determined from the small blood spatters?
I determined that the 2 prints obtained from the small blood splatters were a positive or suggestive match for Parker. A full print from one small splatter was a 20-point match for the right index finger of Parker. A partial print from the other small splatter was a 9-point match from Parker's right thumb.
Can you also explain what you determined for the large blood spatter?
I determined that the 3 prints from the large blood splatter were positive or suggest matches for the defendant, Shay Jackson. One full print was an 18-point match for the left index finger of Jackson. The second full print was a 16-point match for Jackson's right middle finger. The partial print was an 8-point match for Jackson's right thumb.
During your interview analysis, who found Parker unconscious in the alleyway?
Benjamin Stebbins.
When you asked your coworker, Paul Griffin, if there was anyone with a motive, whom did Griffin mention?
Griffin told me that Parker had gotten into an altercation that previous night with an employee, Shay Jackson.
Were there any eyewitnesses to the altercation, and who, if there were any?
Griffin informed me that bartender Kelly O'Sullivan was an eyewitness to that accident.
According to O'Sullivan, how did Jackson appear when he exited the casino?
Jackson appeared bloody and angry when Jackson exited the casino.
Was there anything else O'Sullivan saw at the casino?
O'Sullivan confirmed that Jackson and Parker had gotten into a physical altercation that previous night.
How did Jackson appear when you opened the front door the next morning at his apartment?
Jackson appeared groggy and confused.
What did Jackson ask for when you explained the situation?
Jackson immediately asked for an attorney.
Because of all your experience, did that seem suspicious to you?
Yes.
And what did you find in Jackson's apartment upon search?
I located $700 in cash hidden in Jackson's sock drawer. In the laundry hamper, I found 3 items: a Tito's Taco uniform, a white t-shirt, and an olive green hoodie.
And based on all the evidence, what are your thoughts on Mr. Shay Jackson?
All evidence points to Shay Jackson as the person who attacked and robbed Parker.
No further questions.
All right, is there any the floor is open to the defense for cross-examination of this witness.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Emerald Lee.
Can you please tell me about your credentials?
I am Assistant Division Chief.
Can you please describe the early morning of December 29 for me?
Yep. Jeremy Parker, a resident of State Utopia, was found unconscious in an alleyway next to the Paradise Casino at approximately 2:50 a.m. on December 29, 2021.
Did you search Mr. Jackson's apartment
Yes,
and what did you find?
clothing and cash.
Where did you find? Oh, I'm sorry. There were no eyewitnesses, correct?
There was the bartender.
Eyewitnesses to what? What are you seeking with that question?
To the attack, to the physical fighting?
Thank you. Just was making sure that was clear for the jury. Thank you.
Okay. And can you please tell me about the physical and mental state of Mr. Jackson when you arrested him?
He was confused and seemed a little angry.
Can you say the Mr. Jackson's can you say that Mr. Jackson had sustained any injuries from the night of December 27?
Minor injuries.
Could these injuries had occurred at the arrest?
No.
No, no more questions, Your Honor.
All right. Is there any redirect from the state?
No.
All right, then the witness remains sworn and may step down. All right. Are there any more witnesses that the state wishes to call at this time?
There are no further witnesses.
All right. Is there any other evidence that the state would seek admitted into evidence at this time?
No.
All right, so the state is in a position to rest and conclude its case, presentation of its case.
Yes.
All right. State rests. The defense, is the defense ready to present its case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, the floor is open for the defense to call its first witness.
I'd like to call Madison Nuwali to the stand, please.
Right, Ms. Nuwali, Mr. Nuwali. Nuwali, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you. All right, Mr. Nuwali, you are sworn. Remember, please speak into the microphone. Otherwise, the floor is open to the defense to begin its direct examination. And I will just remind the parties that I'm getting your name on the record, so you don't need to ask them that if you do not wish to. So floor is open and the witness is yours, defense.
Mr. Nuwali, where did you attend college?
North Carolina,
Um,
Chapel Hill,
and,
Johns Hopkins University.
and when did you find the forensic lab?
What forensic lab?
He is the founding father of the forensic lab.
And if you want to give, if you want that evidence to be admitted, then you need to ask him about that. You need to lay your foundation and build it out. I would remind the parties that they may object if they feel that there isn't foundation or any other evidentiary issue. So sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry for objecting sua sponte. The defense, you may resume your questioning of this witness.
When did you find forensic lab analytics?
Years after my research, after researching for 10 years.
And how many times did you say you've testified for the court?
45,
And how many of those times were for the defense?
41.
Did you state that the smaller blood clots on the blazer were indeed Shay's blood type? But did you not also state that there are more than 23 million people at that time?
Yes.
You know from the DNA test that it was for sure Mr. Jackson.
I would remind the defense that what the witness may or may not have said in depositions is not an evidence. Whatever he may have said, he needs to say it to the jury if you want to get it admitted. If you want to ask him a question to elicit testimony, then you need to ask him a question that elicits testimony. Say, prefacing it with, did you say, gives the impression that you've already had this conversation and you're just reading off a script. So. Again, sorry for the interruption. Floor is once more yours.
Is DNA insufficient to identify perpetrators, like strictly?
Yes.
Could the blood that was on Mr. Parker's clothes also have came from the first altercation that they had? Can the DNA of another person also be found under the fingernails of others?
Speak up, sir.
Yes.
So you said no and then yes, after prompting by the court, correct, sir?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can the DNA and fingerprint analysis determine the exact time of day that this happened?
This being
The
S.
murder.
So that, all right, so yeah, and your answer to that is yes, sir? No, I'm sorry, no, sir. That's your answer remains unchanged from the first time you said it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Without clear evidence in DNA profiling, can you be certain that it was Mr. Jackson's blood?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination from the state. So does the state have any cross-examination? It would.
No.
Would the first chair like to weigh in on that? Or would second chair like to walk that statement back?
No further questions.
All right, as there is no cross-examination of this witness, the witness may step down. I would remind the witness that they remain sworn and may come up, may be required to present rebuttal testimony in the future. So you may have a seat, sir. You may step down and have a seat. All right, the attorney, next witness for the defense.
Would like to call Jamie Garcia to the stand.
All right, Mr. Garcia, and if the attorneys for each side would like to come on up as well. A seat, sir. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
Great, Mr. Garcia, you have been sworn. Please state your legal name for the record.
Jamie Garcia.
All right. Mr. Garcia, you have been sworn. Remember, it is a felony to lie while under oath. The floor is otherwise open to the defense to begin its direct examination of this witness.
Can you explain Shay's injuries and conditions?
He was severely injured. He had a cut on the left side of his face. There was another deep dash on the back of his head that was oozing out blood that was able to see the school out of.
How was Shay responding to the questions you asked?
He was very confused. Didn't know what he was doing.
I will remind the defense that there is no foundation for how this conversation occurred. So either you need to lay some or you need to cease pursuing it. I'll also make a note that this is the last sua sponta objection on foundation that the court is going to be making. So if the state wishes to have these made, they're going to need to start making them themselves.
Did you examine Mr. Shay Jackson? I did. Do you think Shay faked his injuries? There was no way he was able to fake them. They were too bad.
Do you think someone with those injuries could murder someone?
I do not. How was the medical equipment cleaned? Whose responsibility is it? Whose responsibility is it to clean it? It's us as paramedics to clean it after we use it, but my shift was just ending, so I didn't know if it got cleaned properly.
How do you think Shay's DNA got to Parker?
It was probably transferred through the pulse ox.
And what is a pulse ox?
It's something that that gets people's pulse rates, respiration rates, temperature, and blood pressure.
And how do you know that?
I'm a paramedic.
What kind of training have you had to become a paramedic?
I went to college for it,
And how long have you been employed as a paramedic?
8 years now. Started right out of high school.
All right, thank you.
When did you start working as a paramedic? I started right after high school as a level 1 EMT.
Okay, no more further questions.
All right, does the state rather have any cross-examination of this witness?
Yes.
The floor is yours, sir.
Jamie, how long have you been a paramedic?
For 8 years.
Have you taken any more classes to pass level 1 EMT?
I did. I went to the community college.
Do you recall when you picked up Shay Jackson from his room?
It was around 10:45 when we got him fully transferred to the hospital,
What day?
27th of December.
Can you describe his injuries?
Uh, he was very beat up. He had a cut on the left side of his face, and there was a cut on the back of his head that was showing the skull and was bleeding severely bad.
Can you tell us when you found Jeremy Parker?
Found on the 29th of December,
What time?
around 3 a.m.
Can you describe his injuries?
He looked like he just got whooped. He got beat up really bad. And when we found him, he was barely breathing.
Was he conscious?
He was.
When you took him into the hospital, was Jeremy found with any other DNA on him?
He was found with Shay's.
Can you tell us how frequently you clean your equipment?
After every incident we report to.
How did Jeremy pass away in the ambulance?
From all the like bruises and stuff he had on his face after getting beat up.
Did Jeremy go into cardiac arrest?
Yes, he did.
Before falling into cardiac arrest, did he say anything?
He did not.
In your statement, you said before falling into cardiac arrest, he said something around dying, poker, money, and purple. Is that true?
Yes.
Do you recall what Shay Jackson was wearing when you took him in to the hospital?
I do not.
Is it true when you took in Jackson, he was wearing a blazer?
Shay Jackson? Mr. Parker was wearing the blazer.
When you took in Jackson, was he wearing a purple shirt?
I do believe he was.
If Shay Jackson was the last one to wear a purple shirt, would you say Mr. Parker was saying purple out of saying that was his last person to see?
Objection, Your Honor.
Cases? Leading. Well, this is cross. Leading questions are permissible on cross. So I will overrule the objection.
You could, but you could also refer it to poker chips. He was all about gambling.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Right, any redirect? Does the defense have any redirect? All right. Witness may step down, but remember you remain sworn and may be called to present rebuttal testimony. All right, does the defense have, next witness for the defense?
Yes, so I'd like to call my last witness to the stand, Mr. Shay Jackson.
All right. Yes, you may. All right, Mr. Jackson, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
Yes.
All right, please state your legal name for the record, please.
Shay Jackson.
All right, then, Mr. Jackson, you have been sworn. I will simply remind you that you have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination by testifying. You also have a Fifth Amendment right against testifying at all. So by testifying today, you will be waiving that Fifth Amendment protection with regards to being compelled to testify. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
And you wish to proceed today?
Yep.
All right, the floor is yours then, defense, for the handling of this witness.
So, Mr. Jackson, why did you sign up for the Texas Hold'em contest in the first place?
Money's tight and I needed to find another way to have another source of income to pay for my vet bill for my dog.
Your Honor, I would like to bring into evidence the bill given to Mr. Jackson for the veterinary visit for his dog Ariel,
That is, what is the exhibit number at the top right?
top right 6.
So you seek admission of exhibit 6?
That is correct.
All right, is there any objection to the admission of exhibit 6 from the state?
No.
All right, so admitted.
So, Mr. Jackson, please describe your financial struggles given exhibit 6.
Financial struggles. I've been tight on money, going job for job, trying to pick up extra hours at work. Been living off PB&Js and ramen noodles, so money is very, very tight.
You stated in your affidavit that you partake in a form of self-defense known as Krav Maga. Please describe Krav Maga.
Please do not reference deposition testimony unless it is for impeachment purposes. So the question is, please describe Krav Maga.
About that. Please describe Krav Maga.
It's so basically, as I stated before, it's Israel street fighting, but the reason I pursue it is more of self-defense than offense. And it's just a way that I find to defend myself.
Please describe any prior relationship you may have had with Jeremy Parker.
He's just a casual, a typical customer the casino has. I've recognized him a few times, but I've never had really any other altercation with him.
And please describe his mannerisms on the night in question, December 27th.
Repeat that.
Please describe his mannerisms on the night in question.
Yeah, we competed in the Texas Hold'em poker game, and that's when the whole altercation happened, and he came for me and came at me and attempted to beat me up. So
Prior to the physical altercation, how was your night going at the tables?
I was winning everything. I didn't lose a single round. Undefeated.
And so what seemed to have sparked the verbal conflict with Mr. Parker on that night?
Well, he cheated for one. He's a cheater. So I lost the final round, resulting in way less money. So I was obviously going to be mad about it because I needed all the money that I could get. And I was angry about it, confronted him, and he didn't like that.
Objection, there's no evidence that he cheated.
Defense's response to the objection? The objection specifically is facts, not an evidence. Correct? All right, then, would the defense, I will give the defense an opportunity to build out that if it so chooses. So defense, would you like to take a stab at addressing the facts, not an evidence?
I have nothing to respond with.
Right, so then would you like to try to ask questioning to establish those facts that have been objected to as not being in evidence?
If you were having such a good night at the tables, what led you to believe that Mr. Parker was cheating?
Because every single round that was dealt was in favor for me, and last round, the only round that's worth the most money ended up in his hand.
And so after this occurred, what seemed to have started the physical confrontation?
Oh, he started coming at me with, I don't know, negative comments whenever he finally beat me, saying stuff like taco kid and making fun of my shirt and where I work and everything. So I had enough and I just told him off, and he shoved me and punched me.
What do you remember exactly of the physical altercation itself?
Yeah, he pushed me first. I fell down, cut my face on the table. I tried to get up, stay my ground, and that's when he hit me in the face. And then after that, I did pull his leg so he wouldn't kick me, but then I got up and walked away like a grown man.
Afterwards, do you recall the commute back to your apartment?
Yeah, it was terrible. I had a raging headache. The world was pretty much spinning. I was dizzy. I got back to my apartment, let my dog out, didn't do anything else, changed my clothes, got in my bed, went to sleep.
And what can you say of the moments just as you arrived home that night,
When I first arrived,
when you arrived home?
yeah, I walked into my apartment at like around 3 or whenever, because the poker game got over at 2, so around 3. I let my dog Ariel out. That's the first thing.
How did you feel physically?
Terrible.
Describe your waking moments the following morning, please.
I felt like I was dying, honestly. Immediately called 911, woke up, had a raging, pounding headache, blood all over my pillow.
And you were put in an ambulance, correct?
Yeah.
Describe your experience in the hospital, please.
I felt like I got checked up and got staples in my cut in the back of the head, stitches on my face. They cleaned me up, but they were trying to make me stay longer. And with how tight money is, I just wanted to go home.
And what happened directly after leaving the hospital after you were discharged?
I got to my car, or not to my car, I got to my house and got on my phone and realized I had a voicemail from my boss saying I was let go.
What was your reaction to hearing this news?
I was very, very upset about it because I'm the one that works the hardest, and having that little altercation, I felt like I didn't deserve that. So I was gonna go immediately the next morning to his office and talk about it.
And so what did you do directly after receiving the voicemail?
I arrived home, and that's whenever I was talking to Skylar and raged to him about it for a while.
And describe your mental state in these moments,
I was upset. I was angry,
physical state.
hurt. Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination of the witness from the state.
Hello, Mr. Shay.
Hello.
Is it that would be after the poker game, you witness testimony state that you approached Mr. Parker while he was at the bar. Is this correct?
False.
False? So you're saying that that's leaving. So you're saying that Mr. what's the So you're saying that the bartender who watched you confront Mr. Parker is lying on stand?
Mr. Parker approached me.
Mr. Parker approached you when?
What do you mean?
When did Mr. Parker approach you?
When did he?
Yes,
After we were raging at the poker table.
after you were raging at the poker table?
Yes.
So both you and
Yes.
Mr. Parker. And witness testimony, which you deny being true, also states that Mr. Parker was the first to enact physical confrontation,
Yes.
correct? You are formally trained in acting under pressure when, let me rephrase that. You have former experience in physical confrontations, correct?
Yes.
You are familiar with fighting?
Yeah.
Do you believe that Mr. Parker was capable of physically or lethally harming you to a degree of needing to be hospitalized?
Yeah.
What about Mr. Parker's build suggested that to you,
His build, like physically,
correct?
he's a big grown man and I didn't want to deal with that.
Earlier, you stated that Mr. Parker spends a lot of time at the poker table.
Yes.
If he spends so much time at the poker table and not training such as Shop McGraw, why would you feel afraid other than his build? Because you should be trained to be able to handle such a
Correct.
big man.
Yes. I'd say I was afraid because it was a place of my work and I didn't want to have to deal with anything such as.
I object that, Your Honor. Assumes facts, not an evidence.
Question's already been answered.
Right, I was trying to look for the.
Yeah. Would the state like to address that by attempting to, would the state like to address that objection by attempting to develop the facts that are allegedly not in evidence? Or does the state have a response to the allegation that they're not in evidence?
In your own statement, you
For the sake of expediting matters, not to put words in the state's mouth, but I believe there's going to be a question regarding deposition statement and attempting to use that to impeach the defendant. Is that correct, state?
yes.
Would you please Mr. Jackson, you have your materials in front of you?
I don't have anything. No.
Then where did you place them? Someone would please grab them and bring them up. The state's going to direct you to where specifically the statement comes from so that you can have it in front of you. So state, you were going to say there should be a page number at the top of that page that you're working off of that you're going to be referencing. Is that correct?
Correct.
What's that number?
42.
So top number 42. All right, and then line number is self-evident, So I'm sorry for directing traffic,
Line 141. And you stated, "You're a cheater. I outplayed you all night. You're such a fool. There's no way you beat me without cheating." I kind of got in his face, fist clenched, and said that money should be mine. You just stated that he confronted you, and you just stated in your own statement that you confronted him with fists clenched.
I thought you were meaning physically.
Do what?
He came at me physically.
Objection. You said that you went to him on.
you can't object to the witness's testimony.
Same goddamn difference. You said that you confronted him with and got in his face in your statement, and now you're saying different.
No, I'm not saying different. You asked who confronted who physically.
and
And
you
He
confronted
shoved
him.
me. Reason 4, I did get in his face because he cheated.
Okay.
Follow-up question. Did you at first verbally confront him?
Oh, yeah, obviously.
And so when you verbally confronted him and he responded with words that you did not like, and he decided to take it physical, how did you feel?
How did I feel?
Yes, how did you feel? Were you angry
I mean, I've been winning all night.
or were you upset?
Yes, we both were.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Asking simple
Cross, he
questions.
can.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
It's Cross, he's allowed to ask leading
I'm
questions.
sorry. Well,
Would you say that you were angry enough to later confront Mr. Parker?
No,
Oh, it's okay. Do you own a green hoodie? Do you wear a green hoodie or own a green hoodie?
agree? Yes.
The bartender witness stated that the day after the alteration, he saw a suspicious man following Mr. Parker. They had on a green hoodie. What is your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of green hoodies in the world.
How many people would you say wear green hoodies around the Paradise Casino?
Seen multiple people,
Multiple people? How many?
multiple
A handful, 10, 12
or less, yeah.
or less?
Probably around like the 7, 8 range.
7 or 8 people in all of Paradise
On
Casino
a, on a weekly basis.
on a weekly basis? In Detective Lee's case, he stated that they found a green hoodie in the search. The same hoodie from the suspicious man. Would you say that you were there that night after the altercation?
No, I was home.
What were you doing at the casino? What is your alibi?
My alibi.
That's a fair question.
I was at home recovering from my injuries, trying to stay healthy in order to survive.
What was your childhood like?
Hard,
Hard?
yes. My dad was a security guard and my mom was a custodian, so money was tight.
Money was tight. When money was tight, what did you do to solve that problem?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
I will give the state a little bit of rope here, but you better be going somewhere that does lead to relevancy, state, because I think I know where you're going with this, but
Establishing former criminal.
well, within the rules of evidence, I hope, because prior bad acts are generally inadmissible evidence.
Would like to point out that my client has paid for his crimes at the Arcadia Juvenile Detention Center.
The objection has been overruled. The question may be, please ask the question again.
When you were in, is it true that you sold drugs as a younger you?
as a younger me.
Yes.
I say I started out, I did sell drugs towards the age of 16, but at first to make money, I started as a local lookout for my local neighborhood.
So when money is tight, you're willing to commit criminal acts.
False.
False. May I reference your statement on page 38, line 25? You stated that you looked so innocent that the cops didn't catch on to me and I proved myself useful. My question would be, is it true that you are used to and accustomed to looking innocent?
Am I used to looking innocent? No,
Yes, that is the question.
there's nothing to hide. I don't need to be innocent.
Um, What are your hobbies, Mr. Shay Jackson?
Work.
Work?
Work.
You work out?
I had to cut all gym memberships, Netflix fees, all that in order to survive.
Before you had to cut out your Netflix fees and gym memberships, did you work out?
Yeah, I had a gym membership.
Would you say that you were more physically trained than Mr. Jeremy was?
No,
Has Mr. Jeremy won any tournament trophies for
I'm not
street
sure.
fighting?
I don't know Mr. Jeremy outside of a casual customer at the casino.
As a casual customer at the casino, has he been in any former fights?
I do not recall. I'm not sure.
What are your thoughts on Mr. Parker?
He's a drunk and he's a gambling addict.
Are you glad that he is dead?
Wow. No,
Gotta be something I can say about that, right?
Try.
I'm, I'm flipping through. I don't, come on, man.
Okay, you start, okay, how do you start by objecting? How do you start objecting?
Object, I'll
Okay, what's your basis for the objection?
figure that out right now. I don't.
Now now you're thinking like a real lawyer. So you're objecting that that is a question whose probative value is outweighed by its prejudicial value, perhaps?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor.
Good answer. Dave's response?
No. Yeah, no.
I'm going to need you to develop your argument a little more than simply disagreeing with the defense
Well,
on that point.
I do not disagree with his objection.
That's fair.
I think that is the first time I've ever been able to sustain an objection based upon the agreement of the parties. So please disregard that question and in the state, if you would like to rephrase and maybe try to keep it probative and not prejudicial, you're
Okay.
free to, but otherwise the objection is sustained.
Mr. Shea, money was tight, therefore going to a motive. Okay, money was tight, correct?
yes,
You would have a someone looking into the situation would say that you have a motive for physical assault against Mr. Parker, correct?
That I do?
That you would.
No.
Anyone in your shoes would have a motive to physically confront and assault Mr. Parker.
Have the motive to? No.
Mr. Parker has a lot of money. He cheated. You were angry. Someone else in your shoes.
The question has been asked and answered,
Yes.
counsel.
I was gonna say.
With all your aggressive background, what evidence do you have to say you wouldn't act aggressive?
That the court's going to object sua sponte to that. It is not, it's your job to prove the defendant's guilt here, not his to prove his innocence.
All right.
So I will advise the state it's getting dangerously close to wasting the court's time with questions that are either beyond the scope, prejudicial, or that it should know not to ask because of its own burden.
When was the last time you did Krav Maga?
When was the last time you participated in Krav Maga?
Okay. Probably way back whenever I was in juvie.
Could you have been so angry to have used this on Mr. Parker just out of reflex?
No.
How was your dog?
How is my dog?
Yes,
Better,
better.
better.
Congratulations. No
Thank you.
further questions.
All right, is there any redirect to this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with no redirect, you may step down, sir. You may be called for rebuttal testimony
I was
potentially.
dog.
All right. There any more witnesses that the defense wishes to call this time?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any other evidence that the defense would seek to admit into evidence at this time?
No.
All right. With regards to the state, before we go to closing, are there any rebuttal witnesses that the state would like to call? A rebuttal witness being recalling one of the state's witnesses to testify only to things that were raised by defense witnesses or issues raised by defense witnesses as a kind of, think of it as a scope of testimony would be similar to cross after direct. So couldn't necessarily raise new issues, but you could rebut the testimony that was put on by the defense. So is there any way, are there any rebuttal testimony that the state wishes to elicit at this time?
No.
Right? All right, then. I will offer this last opportunity. Is there any other evidence that either party would seek to have admitted at this time before we go to closing? State?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then. We will move to closing. So the defense rests then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, we will go to closing arguments then. Floor is open to the state to present its closing argument.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, throughout the duration of this trial, you have heard evidence from several witnesses, experts, and the accused himself. It is now time to review the evidence which you have been presented and reach a verdict. My colleagues and I have done our best to show you that Shay Jackson is a dangerous individual who committed a cold-blooded, premeditated murder. As a result of an altercation, Jeremy Parker was left lifeless at just 45 years old. As you can see from the evidence you have heard, Shay Jackson is a man with a growing gambling habit who was tempted enough to kill a human being. After losing his job, a witness claimed to see a similar stature walk to the exit where Parker was leaving, who also had have the anger and guts to confront Parker. The only way to find a way out of his predicament was to confront and kill Jeremy Parker so that he could get money and relieve his anger towards Jackson from the previous night. It is with unreasonable doubt that Shay Jackson is responsible for the death of Jeremy Parker. Thank you.
All right, Floor is open to the defense for cross-examination.
Ladies and
No, I'm
gentlemen.
sorry, close the argument. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like to reiterate that Mr. Shay Jackson was not in the vicinity of the time when Jeremy Parker was murdered. And even if he was physically in the vicinity, he was not physically able to or mentally prepared for murderous action. Mr. Shay Jackson is a good, honest man and does not deserve to be penalized for a crime that he did not commit. That is all. Thank you.
All right. Members of the jury, you have seen and heard all the evidence and the arguments of the attorneys. It is your duty to find the facts and render a verdict reflecting the truth. You should consider all the evidence, the arguments, contentions, and positions urged by the attorneys, and any other contention that arises from the evidence. All 11 of you must agree to your verdict. My role is now to explain to you the legal principles that will guide you in your decisions. You must not substitute or follow your own notion or opinion about what the law is or ought to be. You must apply the law as I give it to you, whether you would agree with it or not. The defendant, Shay Jackson, pleaded not guilty to the offense of first-degree murder. The fact that the defendant has been indicted is no evidence of guilt. That defendant is presumed to be innocent. The presumption of innocence means that Shay Jackson has no burden or obligation to present any evidence or to prove that he is innocent or that he is not guilty. The entire burden or obligation of proof is on the government, the state, to prove that Shay Jackson is guilty. The burden stays with the government throughout this process and through the trial. In order for you to find Shay Jackson guilty of the charge in this matter, the state must prove each and every element of that charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all possible doubt or to a mathematical certainty. A reasonable doubt is a fair doubt based on reason, logic, common sense, or experience. It may arise from the evidence or from the lack of evidence or from the nature of the evidence. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that fully satisfies or entirely convinces you of the defendant's guilt. If, having heard all the evidence, you are convinced that the government has proven each and every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, you should return a verdict of guilty for that charge. However, if you have reasonable doubt about one or more of the elements of first-degree murder, then you must return a verdict of not guilty. The defendant has been charged with the offense of first-degree murder. The state has declined to seek charges for the lesser included offenses of second-degree murder or manslaughter. Under the law and the evidence in this case, it is your duty to return one of the following verdicts: guilty of first-degree murder or not guilty. First-degree murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice and with premeditation and deliberation. For you to find defendant guilty of first-degree murder, the state must prove 6 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant intentionally and with malice killed the victim. Malice means not only hatred, ill will, or spite, as it is ordinarily understood, but it also means the condition of mind which prompts a person to intentionally take the life of another or to intentionally inflict serious bodily harm that proximately results in another person's death without just cause, excuse, or justification. If the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant intentionally killed the victim or intentionally inflicted a wound upon the deceased that proximately caused the victim's death, you may infer first that the killing was unlawful and second, that it was done with malice, but you are not compelled to do so. You may consider this along with all other facts and circumstances in determining whether the killing was unlawful and whether it was done with malice. Second, that the defendant's act was a proximate cause of the victim's death. A proximate cause is a real cause, a cause without which the victim's death would not have occurred, and one that is reasonably careful and prudent, and one that a reasonably careful and prudent person could foresee would probably produce such death. The defendant's act need not have been the only cause, nor the last or nearest cause. It is sufficient if it occurred with some other cause acting at the same time, which in combination with caused the death of the victim. Third, that the defendant intended to kill the victim. Intent is a mental attitude seldom provable by direct evidence. It must ordinarily be proven by circumstances from which it may be inferred. An intent to kill may be inferred from the nature of the assault, the manner of which the assault was made, the conduct of the parties, and any other relevant circumstances. Fourth, that the defendant acted with premeditation. According to the law, premeditation means that the defendant thought about taking a human life and reached a definite decision to kill before acting, even if that was only seconds, even if that time was only seconds. Fifth, that the defendant acted with deliberation, which means that the defendant acted in a cool state of mind. The defendant need not exhibit a total absence of passion or emotion. If the intent to kill was formed with a fixed purpose, not under the influence of some suddenly aroused violent passion, it is immaterial whether the defendant was in a state of passion or excited when the intent was carried into effect. Neither premeditation nor deliberation is usually susceptible of direct proof. Rather, they may be inferred from circumstances such as the lack of provocation by the victim, conduct of the defendant before, during, and after the killing, threats and declarations of the defendant, use of grossly excessive force, infliction of lethal wounds after the victim is felled, brutal or vicious circumstances of the killing itself, the manner in which or means by which the killing was done, or ill will between the parties. Sixth, that the defendant did not act in self-defense, or that the defendant was the aggressor in provoking the fight with the intent to kill or inflict serious bodily harm. If you find from the evidence that the above elements have been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, it is your duty to return a verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree. If you do not find such or have a reasonable doubt as to one or more of these things, it is your duty to return a verdict of not guilty of first degree murder. Now, before excusing you to the jury room, you have been provided with a binder that contains copies of the jury instructions and of the exhibits. If you would please flip open to the exhibits and remove all of them except for exhibit 6, as that is the only exhibit that has been admitted into evidence, and that is the only exhibit that you are allowed to consider in your deliberations. Yep. So remove all of them but 6, and once you have done so, inform the court. And it says the exhibit numbers are in the top right-hand corner of the pages. All right, has everyone removed the exhibits from their binder? I'm going to come over and collect them then, if everyone has. Believe there's one set left. All right. So as you now have all evidence you may consider, I will allow you to adjourn to the jury room. Also, if you have questions regarding the jury instructions, a copy has been included of what I just read you regarding your duties and the elements of that question. And our wonderful bailiff Griselda will show you the way to the jury room. Can you close their door? Make sure that's closed too. Thank you. All right, now we get to wait for them to deliberate, which they might be back in 10 minutes or they might not be back till lunch. Just all depends. So then, do we want to have a little debrief about how things went? Hmm? All right, well, let's start with, I came over and talked to you guys several times. I wanted some Phoenix Wright table pounding and dramatic posing. I mean, it took you guys all morning just to start objecting. And by the time you guys started objecting and things started really flowing, it was just, yeah, it was, come on, guys, you're a kid. Oh yeah, no, when I look in the gallery and I see the witnesses are going, object, 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 object. Yeah, it's, so the first thing is yes, if you think there's an evidentiary issue, always object. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to get overruled. And I will say this is the state when the court tells you basically call rebuttal witnesses, you should take the hint, because you guys finally it took a while for everything to click. It took a while for everything to click on kind of how this is supposed to work, but it did click, and that was great. By the end, you guys were doing pretty good. And yep. Yep, sir. Everybody lied. You everybody what? Yes. Yes. Public bathroom is out there. Yes. So yes, sorry for that, folks. You may use the bathroom. All right. So, was that fun? Was that fun?
Jesse.
So that's a yes to that being fun. It just, like I said, it took a while for everything to click. Would everyone agree with that?
Yeah. Well, we should have had a trial run.
Well, witness prep helps. Witness prep helps. Yes. Okay, then I'll ask this. Was there anything that I could have done to make this, to help it click faster? And it seems like I've lost the room. All right, so then I'll ask this of our folks who are here from the middle school. What did you guys think? Middle schoolers. Yo, students in the back, eyes forward. 6th grade. I'm sorry, elementary school. I'm sorry. All right, eyes forward. What did you guys think? Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. I only see a couple of raise them high for everybody out there on YouTube. Okay, we got a lot of them. All right. So we can expect next year's 6th graders over here, right? And you guys are looking forward to when you guys get to do this as 12th graders. Yeah? Good. Oh. All right. So then, are there any questions from anybody for me about what they saw this morning, about what we're doing now, or about what's going to happen going forward?
Should have, would have, could have. I just go, objection.
That is exactly what you should have done. There would have been a slight problem that you're not an attorney, but we would have figured out how to do that. Yes. Hmm? Yes. No, everyone may go to, yes.
Across 17, I did it at 1 a.m. last night.
It's just that Mr. McAllister forced me to do it, but.
Thanks for not having any questions for me there, bud. What a lifesaver.
I did not see continuous. You asking him this question now? Yeah, how did you get a degree on the first try? Shit. I mean, you guys did good. But, there was a plot with me. Probably should have like put herself in the group chat. I know. There's these things. Okay, the player. I like that. In this.
Your Honor, who is actually betraying myself?
And rebuttal, then I've had it. The witness called me. Yeah, right. At the end, we, you know, we had Shay Jackson valedictorian, he got Jesse, just, they were actually, I was trying to help. I'm actually like, you're not the judge, I had to be the judge. Yeah. No, I think we're choosing being the judge. And you gotta realize last year's class, I mean, they just, it was just a different class. But at least they know the flow of trials. Hopefully they won't have to go to court too much. A lot of times you gotta report as a witness to some other. Like you're finding anybody, right? I taught speaking on the next day, high school and college. Not too many people can teach college. And then coaching everything. I could find out. Yeah, I would say that.
All right, if the state and defense would start filing back, the jury has reported that that a verdict has been reached. All right, Mr. Jackson, if you would please report to council table. Yep. Council table, so there, yes. As we await with bated breath the return of the jury. They should be back soon. With 5 minutes is what we advise them to filter in by, so. All right, well. As a verdict has been reached, it is never too late for the parties to reach their own resolution in this matter. The state and the defense wish to engage in any plea bargaining. You are, of course, welcome to do that at this time. Well, you've been welcome to do it all morning, but sometimes a jury reaching a verdict can focus the parties. So I'm going to go on a limb and say, after having gone to trial in this matter, there is no interest in that or minimal interest. All right, while you were in back jury, did you select a jury foreman? You, sir, please stand up. Has the jury reached a verdict? All right. And the jury's verdict is unanimous? All right. The jury has announced its verdict of not guilty. Mr. Jackson, you are a free man. We shall stand adjourned. We shall stand adjourned in this matter. All right, thank you for participating, everyone, for the jury for their service, for the students for their diligence. I look forward, if anyone would ever like to participate in the future, we can always use volunteers to. So did everyone who was part of the process have fun with this? Loud and proud so they can hear you on YouTube.
Yes.
All right. I do not, okay. Okay, then, guys, so now that a verdict has been reached, do we want to just hang out and oh, you want to do something? All right. All right, then. Thank you to everyone out there who has joined us on the internet as well. Thank you for the YouTube audience. This concludes the 2023 Syracuse High School mock trial.